Hello, my name is Anne Purvis. I'm one of the coordinators of the Toronto Field Naturalist Juniors program. So last week at our Wednesday night class at 4:30, we had a guest speaker from the Metro Zoo who works for the Great Lakes program there. Kat Lucas taught us about some of the species that live in the Great Lakes and what we can do to protect the Great Lakes. The opening slide in our slideshow today is by Sonia, and she has drawn some of the species that Kat talked about and made a beautiful journal entry. So she showed us the red-sided dace, which jumps out of the water. It's about the length of our finger, but it lives on flying insects, so it actually waits in the shadows of the overhanging banks and jumps out of the water to catch insects in flight. So that's really cool that Sonia featured that. And then the Atlantic salmon with the speckled sides, and this lake sturgeon, which we really enjoyed hearing about, the largest freshwater fish in the world that lives on worms and grubs and digs them up with its barbels. And she also drew a picture of the American eel, which we learned from Kat that it travels all the way from Florida up the East Coast and down the St. Lawrence and gets to breed in the lakes of Ontario, the freshwater lakes of Ontario. So thank you, Sonia. Amara also sent in her journal entry of the sturgeon, and I was really cool that she labeled it so beautifully, and also drew on the sturgeon the lateral line, which is a very cool feature of fish. And it is nerve cells that actually sense the movement of water waves. Our ears sense the movement of air waves, and that's how we hear. And our ears actually evolved from the lateral line of fish. So very cool that we can see it so clearly in the sturgeon, and that Amara featured it. This was an experience that Jim and I had hiking in Taylor Creek Park on one of those really amazingly warm days in November last week. And so I'd like you guys to think about what these are. So the group agreed that these are water striders. Seemed very strange to be seeing them in November. They are carnivores, and they live on little mosquitoes and dead bugs that land on the water. They seem very long to me compared to water striders that we see in the summer. And I learned that they actually overwinter as adults, hiding in leaf litter and under logs. And to do that, they have to actually fly out of the water, and they have to fly to return to the water in the spring. And so water striders that are born after, in the fall, which is now, actually grow wings. And water striders born in the summer do not. So they're what we call polymorphic with regard to wings. Some grow them and some don't. So this is an exoskeleton picked up by Anna and Evelyn when they were cleaning up their yard. Anna thought it might be a cicada exoskeleton. I think it probably isn't, because usually a cicada exoskeleton is one piece, because they kind of split, the thorax kind of splits and the organism comes out of the split, but the exoskeleton remains in one piece. So I'm thinking this might be a moth exoskeleton, but cool find. And Pamela and Mara found a grasshopper. It's very interesting that insects are so sluggish at this time of the year. It's actually a great time to go searching for them, and they're easy to pick up. I think this might be a snakeweed grasshopper just because of its size and its coloring, although its coloring is very muted at this time of year, and this herringbone pattern on the thigh. So these were some dragonflies that landed on me, actually. That's my hand. The male is up above, and he's got the female by the head, actually. He's grasping her by the back of his abdomen, holding her in place, and she's curled her abdomen around to a spot very close to the thorax where she's receiving his sperm. So now these ruby meadowhawk dragonflies will fly around in tandem until the female lays her eggs, and she will lay them in grassy areas, not directly in water. The eggs will overwinter in the grassy areas, and then when they flood in the spring runoff, the nymphs will emerge from the eggs and make it into the body of water where they will become adults. So moving on to amphibians now. These are two American toads that were found by Pamela and Amara. I found out that toads leave the water as a group when they reach a certain age, and then they will spend the rest of their lives on land, either in forests or meadows. During the winter, they dig themselves in backwards. They use their hind legs to dig themselves into a deep depression in the ground, and that's where they overwinter, cover themselves up. And this is a northern leopard frog. This was actually in the water, Amara told us during the class. I always thought that leopard frogs buried themselves in mud like turtles. It turns out leopard frogs need very highly oxygenated water flowing over them during the winter. So they tend to lie on top of mud or just very shallowly depressed into the mud at the bottom of a river. They prevent themselves from freezing by filling the spaces between the cells with glucose, with sugar. This draws the water out of the cells so that when the cells freeze, they don't burst. Pamela and Amara also found these tracks, which they think are turkey tracks, and it actually is possible to see in these tracks a little bit of the pattern of the texture of the feet. We can see that there's no webbing between these toes, so probably they are turkey tracks, and it's fascinating to see what a straight line they walked in. So they walk, their gait is about 8 to 12 centimeters. Pamela and Amara also found this track right here, which they thought was a bear track. I found one on the internet just for comparison's sake. These toes tend to be quite big and round, and there should be 5 of them. There's just 4 here visible, but there might be another one over here. The thing that's quite characteristic of bear paw prints is that the heel of the hand or the foot is larger towards the outside. So this is a left foot, and this side of it here, this side of the heel is quite a bit bigger than this side. So I challenged the group what kind of scat this might be. It is actually deer scat, and if you open up any of these little pebbles of scat, you would find it's pure fiber in there. It's just the parts of the plant that the deer was not able to eat. The group guessed this was fox scat, and you can see some of the bones of the little creatures, the bones and cartilage of the creatures that this fox had eaten. I wondered if there was also some insect exoskeletons. It is okay when you find scat like this to break it open with your hands. Sometimes it's sad to see how the creature was scavenging berries and just pine needles and pretty much anything. So this is the remains of a nest found by Anna and Evelyn when they were cleaning up their backyard in a bird box. I was trying to figure out what kind of a nest this might be, and I thought, well, an urban setting, a bird box, it was probably either a starling or a house sparrow. So I looked in my nest book, and it said the house sparrow nest is a neat dome structure, and the starling nest, it says, an untidy accumulation of stems, leaves, and other plant material. The male begins the nest before pairing, and the female completes the nest. So it was interesting to wonder if this was a nest that was started by a male who never found a mate. So there was no one to finish building the nest. I don't believe they found any eggs or any evidence that it was actually inhabited. So Marina and Sonia and Mila submitted pictures of this bird. I struggled, as we always do with fall warblers, to figure out what it is. The yellow chest with the black stripes along the side is of course important. The fact that the throat is a little bit white, that it has wing bars, and that there's a faint black eye stripe through the eye made me think that it's probably a prairie warbler. So they are at the very upper end of their range here in Toronto. They don't nest any further north than the North Shore of Lake Ontario. And they spend the winter in Florida and the northern coast of South America. So this guy has a long way to go before winter comes, and they are insect eating, so it really needs to get on its way. Sonia and Marina and Mila also found this red-bellied woodpecker. They're going to be with us all winter. He was marching up and down the tree, moving someone else's stash of nuts and seeds from its hiding spot to a spot of his own choice. So that was pretty cute to watch. And this is a bird that Marina photographed, and I don't know what it is. It was a big challenge. I have a request in from one of our senior naturalists at the Toronto Field Naturalists to let me know what this is, and maybe we'll figure it out for next week. Our final slide is a slide of some bones. Bones are a fun thing to keep an eye out for at this time of year when we're not distracted by migratory birds or flowers, whatever. So this is probably the remains of a deer skeleton, but this ball joint here where the femur would fit in is very small, so I'm guessing that this was a fawn. On our property, the only animal we have that could take down a deer, even a small deer, would be a coyote, and so we assume that the coyote had something to do with killing this animal. Along all of these joints here, there's lots of scratching wherever it's soft, and we're guessing that mice often gnaw on bones to get the calcium. So that's probably what we see there.